This is the voice of the Report of the Week, signing on. Well, hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone listening in to this new podcast, VORW International, going out to the first week of April 2024. Welcome, one and all. Welcome to a new month, the fourth month of 2024. Hope this year has been a good one for you so far. And if you celebrated, I hope you had a wonderful, pleasant Easter. Straightforward show today. First and foremost, I'd like to draw your attention to the description of this video, or if you're just listening in on a podcast platform, then make sure you listen in. Have some fan art for the broadcast tonight. 4 pieces, as a matter of fact. And I would first like to give credit where credit is due. First piece of fan art featured in the broadcast goes out to Tversity, that's T-E-V-E-R-S-I-T-Y, Tversity. You could search that username up on Instagram, and there's a link to the Instagram page in the description. Second piece of fan art featured in the broadcast, TerminalMontage, that's one word, T-E-R-M-I-N-A-L-M-O-N-T-A-G-E, TerminalMontage. Third piece of fan art goes out to Avery in Indiana. And the fourth and final piece of fan art for the broadcast tonight goes out to an Instagram user, amalgam.ation, that's amalgam.ation on Instagram. If you'd like to make a piece of fan art to be featured in the next broadcast, you're more than welcome to just go ahead with it, have fun, be creative. Preferably do so legitimately. I will always prioritize non-AI artwork. You could just send in the piece of fan art as an email attachment, or you could send in a link to an image hosting site. I could download it from there. Just email it to me, VORWINFO@gmail.com, and please let me know how you would like to be credited, because you put the time into making this fan art, and at the very least I'll credit you in the next broadcast. I'll have it featured front and center for listeners to see, and then let me know how you would like to be credited, be that by name, or if there is a website or a social media profile you'd like linked so folks can find more of your art. Just keep in mind, if you do not let me know how you'd like to be credited, then by default I will keep you anonymous. And if you'd like to be anonymous, you just let me know, and that's something I will fully respect. Okay. One other thing before we get into the rest of the program. Things, as far as this broadcast and the radio show I do, things could be in better shape, financially, to be straightforward. I have a Patreon set up, patreon.com/thereportoftheweek, and all the wonderful folks who support the broadcasts on Patreon, it's the only reason this is even going. And I owe it all to them. If it weren't for the folks who support it there, it would be nothing. And I mean that completely. But obviously everyone is, they have their means, they have what they can do, what they can't. Everyone's financial situation, it fluctuates, it changes. So a lot of the time, and this is how it's always been with me, it's been this way since 2015, 2016, is that for the most part, whatever comes in via the PayPal or the Patreon is able to cover a decent percentage of the costs that it takes to do this show, and then most of all the radio show that I do, twice a week, every week. And it covers the bulk of the costs, and then I directly subsidize the rest. Through whatever earnings come in on YouTube, I'll just have to take a percentage out of that to just pay the remainder of the bills so that I stay on the air and everything just continues as usual. But obviously it's dependent on two things. It's dependent, number one, that what comes in from the PayPal and the Patreon is stable, and secondly, what comes in on the YouTube is stable. Now, for those of you who do the YouTube, you already know the beginning of each year is always a difficult time. The CPM is always quite low. Resultantly, the earnings are low as well. That leaves me with much less to work with on my end as far as what I'm able to subsidize. And while things are starting to look a little bit better, it's a slow and gradual process. I guess I'm just trying to say is that I could look at the writing on the wall, I could see where things are headed, and I could see that while it's not necessarily dire, it's going to get close. It's going to get close to it. And this is that point where a tough situation can still be avoided. There's a lot at stake, and if you just want to help out the broadcast, you want to help keep it all going, you could always support it via PayPal, with a donation, again via PayPal, VORWINFO@gmail.com. You could always support it via Patreon too, patreon.com/The Report of the Week. If you want to advertise in this broadcast, that's another way that you can help. It's actually a way that it's a good way for you to get your money back, and then some, quite frankly. And if you want more information about that, you could just reach out to me, VORWINFO@gmail.com. It's humiliating to have to ask of this. I hate doing it. I'm feeling optimistic in how things will be looking in a few months, but I guess it's just, in the meantime, trying to hobble over to that point and just trying to make sure that that's something that could even be done, because I'm trying to be pragmatic about it now. So then you don't have to hear me in a few weeks come back literally groveling, and I just want to be better than that. But sometimes, if this is what it comes down to, and if this is how it is year after year, maybe it's not even meant to be. I don't know. Certainly not a good business model in the first place. But it's just where things stand. Any bit helps. $5, $10, even a financial gift of $1. Every little bit. It really does add up. Just something to keep in mind. Now, please give your attention to this great advertiser that we do have. And if you want to advertise, just think about it. Check out Drew Buxton's exciting new book, So Much Heart, out now from With an X Books. It's a literary short story collection with speculative horror elements that has received praise from Nylon, Southwest Review, Chicago Review of Books, and the Southern Review of Books, among other outlets. Nylon named it a must-read, writing, Drew Buxton's debut short story collection exposes the wiry underbelly of things, schemes, addiction, intrusive thoughts, masculinity, American mythology, with a beating heart interested most in affirming the strangeness of his life. Southwest Review says of So Much Heart, what makes these stories truly special, what turbocharges them, is their departure from realism into bent and refracted versions of past, contemporary, and future Americas. The book is available for purchase at withanxbooks.com/store. That's withanxbooks.com/store. withanxbooks.com/store. Or for more information, visit drewbuxton.com. That's DREWBUXTON.com. drewbuxton.com. Alright, so let's get into this. Pretty straightforward show tonight, if I say so myself, anyway. I don't have a ton that I really want to talk about independently. Let me actually move microphone back a little bit. I don't have a ton that I really want to talk about, Sometimes, and I know I've said this before because the sentiment remains, it's like there's plenty that I theoretically could talk about, but how much is there that I actually want to talk about? Or at least I could rephrase that, want to talk about here. And that's the big if. Here. Or do I want to? When I do the radio show, yeah, I'm plugging it. So be it. I'll break open the news, I'll discuss the news of the day, and then give my analysis on it. I don't really do that on YouTube because a lot of the time when I do the analysis of the news, I have an opinion on it. And online you have to be careful about what opinions you have. So I sort of just play it safe. That's why, for instance, there were some emails that came in, understandably so, that said, well, the predictions show, where is it, right? What happened? I released it in February, early February, I'd say. I'm very proud of it. I thought it was a good show. It had excellent listener participation. Outstanding. I would easily say the best of any predictions show I've done. 5 hours it was. 5 hours of just amazing, varied predictions. And it's up, it's out. It is not on YouTube. And the reason why it's not on YouTube is because as I was doing the editing, I made this decision in my mind right off the bat. I thought, I like this show the way that it is. There is no way in hell that I am going to just edit this thing to bits and probably remove about 3 of the 5 hours of content just to get it on the YouTube channel so it makes a couple pennies. I thought, not a chance. It's not worth it. And it's an insult, quite frankly, to the show itself, and most importantly, to everyone who took the time and effort to write and then submit a prediction. It's not happening. I said, so forget it. It's not going on the YouTube channel, because I can't do that. I cannot, in good faith, do that. So, I think a lot of people realize that it's everywhere but YouTube, because it looks as though it has very good listenership, which is nice. I'm glad that folks are checking it out. But if you haven't, I strongly encourage you to. Make sure you give it a listen. You could find it, any of the links in the video description. Check it out there. SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, any other podcast site, you name it, the show is there, and make sure you listen to it. 5 hours long, and you're going to hear every view under the sun, pretty much, is there, and it is for that reason why it couldn't be on YouTube. And last thing I wanted to do was honestly undermine the seriousness of the show, and only put, the predictions that don't discuss anything relevant. I can't do that. And there would be too much of the show edited out that I had to just make the decision right on the spot. I said, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to just cannibalize the show and take what I felt deep down was going to be a good show and make it into something I feel subpar just to get on YouTube, or leave it as it is, publish it everywhere else, and just take the loss? I chose the latter. So, if you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to. All you have to do, go to SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/VORW, Or you could go on iTunes, Spotify, any podcast platform, just type in the 4 letters, VORW. You will find the show, and then just scroll down and you'll see it right there. 2024 Listener Predictions Show. 5 hours, 6 minutes in length, and a darn good show if you ask me. There aren't very many times where I'm really proud of what gets pumped out here on this, but I'm proud of the wonderful feedback that came in for that. Because if it weren't for all the emails and predictions that I had, the show wouldn't be anything. And I hope it made for as enjoyable a listen as it was for me to make that show, because it really was a pleasure. So otherwise, sticking with YouTube, I'm amazed. Did you know, as of February 20th, the channel has been going for 13 years straight. 13. It's surreal. Absolutely surreal to see that. 13 years. Funny how time is, how there can be things that you could look back on that are like just a few years old, 2, 3 years old, and you think, God, that feels like it was ages ago. But then you could think back to something from 13 years ago, and you remember it like it was yesterday. It's funny how that is sometimes. I remember it. The YouTube channel. When I first did it, I've told the story many times. It was just an idea. It was just something I wanted to do for fun, because I had this camera lying around that I hadn't any purpose for. Just this flip camera. And was shooting like some home movies with it and things of that nature. And there was this time in early 2011, but it really started in late 2010, where I was interested in energy drinks. Because I would go to the store in the supermarket, and I would see them, there were, at the time also, you were seeing more commercials for energy drinks on television. So there were commercials, I know for a fact, for, I think it was Red Bull, especially, but you were seeing commercials for all those, like, energy shots. At the time, 5 Hour Energy was really big. And there were all these different brands. And I remember going to the supermarket and seeing all these different things, Monster, and you see the Claw, and you see Red Bull, and you see Rockstar, and 5 Hour Energy, Amp, and so on and so forth. And I remember thinking, what do these taste like, Because mind you, I've always been a night owl. I always have been. I'm the type that I naturally stay up late into the night. And sometimes I need that little boost to keep me going. A lot of the time, though, I need that boost to get me going when I wake up, For those of you who are night owls, but for a time when you're forced to be on a day schedule, you know the way it goes. It's not always easy to function under those parameters, but sometimes we have to do what we have to do. And at that time, I was mostly drinking coffee, tea. And I still think tea is a pleasant beverage, but the caffeine content therein just wasn't cutting it. And caffeine pills, but those, that's not as fun as drinking coffee or any of that. But it does get the job done. You just have to be careful with them, know your limit. But energy drinks, it was one of those things that I had never expressed a ton of interest in, but I was seeing the promotions for them. Again, I would see them all in the different aisles, and of course there was this healthy curiosity where I thought, I wonder, number one, what they taste like, and number two, how effective are they? And originally, I didn't even have any plan on making a review video series. I was actually just doing this quite literally for my own personal curiosity. I remember had a pen and paper, made a chart on it with various brands and various places where I could just write down the data, and I was just going to do this for myself, just for curiosity's sake. And in late 2010, that's what I started doing. There was no video aspect. I was just drinking some Monster, trying out some Red Bull, seeing, I wonder how this tastes. I wonder, does it work? Does it not? How does it make me feel? Is it any good? And I remember some of the drinks, especially Monster, which I may add, am a bit partial to. They tasted a little bit better than I thought it was going to. I thought, this isn't that bad. And it was just one of those things that, as time progressed, and then we entered early 2011, it was just one of those things that just happened to be, where I was still in the midst of this. I was still thinking about, what's the next energy drink I'm going to try? Is this any good? Is it not? Simultaneously, I had this camera around, just doing nothing. And it was one of those things where it's just like the pieces just came together one night, and I thought, well, I have this camera, I have this idea, maybe I'll just incorporate the two, and maybe I'll start doing this assessment in video form and see what I think of it, and see if I like doing it this way or not. And that's exactly what happened. The Energy Crisis Review was born February 20th, 2011. Was trying out 5-hour energy in pomegranate flavor. And I even remember after the first video I ever did, I didn't feel like, this is horrible, I hate this, this was a waste of time. After the camera was turned off and the video was done, I thought, this is actually pretty fun. I uploaded it, never expecting anyone to watch these, never expecting anything to come of this. I was just doing this for the fun of it. It was just, I thought I was going to do this for a couple weeks, review a couple energy drinks, maybe do like 10, 15 videos, one a week. That's why the channel was called the Report of the Week. It was one report per week. And then that was going to be that. Hang it up and call it a day. But even after the first video, it's like you ever do something and you're not always sure going in, you're a bit apprehensive, but by the end of it, it's like, wow, I genuinely enjoy this. This is actually fun. It was one of those feelings. It was like, wow, this went better than I thought it would. And I uploaded it. Again, I didn't think anyone was going to watch any of this stuff. And then the next week I did the second review where I tried out Monster, and it was even at that point where it was like, I'm just going to keep this going. Even by week 2, it was like, that feeling that I had after the first video, it wasn't just some one-off thing. This is like a consistent feeling. I just feel happy doing this. It's like I have my own little show where I can review the drink, but also screw around a little bit and incorporate my own little dialogue and jokes and tangents and what have you in it, and do it the way that I want to do it. And I really had a good time doing that. So even by the second video, I decided, I know I went into this with a finite view of things, but maybe I'll just keep this going for as long as I want to keep it going for. Besides, there's plenty of energy drinks out there. And that's how it all came to be. You know, it was just an idea. It was something that just came about by chance. I thought, I'm just going to give this idea a shot. Didn't know how it was going to be. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but one Sunday afternoon, I decided to just go for it. I just sort of said, I'm just going to throw this metaphorical idea at the wall, and if it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I felt that inspiration, that motivation to just give it a shot, and whatever happens, happens. And 13 years later, my God, it's still surreal. It's still absolutely surreal. And I remember the first night, because I uploaded the video, the very first review. I remember it. This is one of those memories where it's like yesterday. I could just visualize myself sitting there at my computer, uploading the video. I remember it, clear as day. It was a Sunday evening when I uploaded it. I made the account the same day, and originally the channel wasn't actually going to be the report of the week. It was going to be something similar. It was going to be like the weekly report or something, but that was taken, so I just kind of switched the words up a little bit, and that's how that name was how it came to be, I should say. Sorry if that's a bit redundant. But I remember sitting there, watching the video upload, and I do remember thinking to myself, imagine if this channel actually somehow got an audience. But it's very important when I say that not to conflate that with an expectation. A lot of people now, understandably so, I understand why, go into social media and trying to do something on YouTube or whatever it might be with almost the expectation or the goal that they want to get a sizable audience and make this something that they do full time. It was not like that. It was not that was any sort of goal. This was that feeling akin to when you go out and buy a lottery ticket. It's like, darn well, when you get that ticket, you know that you're probably not going to win at all. But there's always that feeling before the lottery numbers get drawn, where you sit there and you think, just imagine if I win the lottery, Imagine if, right? And you have that thought that comes into your head and you think, yeah, imagine that, right? It's like, that this is something that's probably never going to happen, but it's still fun to think about. It's like, yeah, what if, right? What if? It was a thought just like that. It's like, yeah, alright, that's great and all, but that's not happening. And I know that my past self, all those years back, he'd just die if he saw that, wait a minute, this channel actually ended up being your livelihood. God, I can't even just faint, I'm sure. It's still surreal. That's the craziest thing, it's been years and years since it's been full-time now, and it's still surreal. I still can't believe it. Still can't believe it. I don't think it ever won't feel surreal to me anyway, because again, it's not something that I went into this with the expectation that this was going to be the outcome. Not at all. For about 2 years straight, I don't even think the channel got to 200 subscribers. I was still there every week, though, uploading videos, just because I wanted to do it. For all of 2011, pretty much, and all of 2012, every week, did the reviews, did the energy drink reviews, and in 2012, then I expanded to the food review series. And it wasn't until 2013 when any of the videos actually got any traction. So I was doing it every single week. Every week, for 2 years. And the channel didn't even get 200 subscribers. But it was something that I just enjoyed doing. And that was the motivation that I just needed to go for it each week. And again, in 2013, that's when the channel first got some attention. And at the time, in 2013, I was understandably regarded as like the kid in the suit that does the reviews. And now in 2024, I'm the guy that looks half dead in the suit doing the reviews. But here I still am, and you know, so far though, 2024 has been a stronger year for the channel than I thought it was going to be, which is, I don't know how. I don't know. I don't understand it. 13 fucking years, and it's still somehow going. I don't get it. I don't get it, but I appreciate it. It wouldn't be possible if it weren't for all you out there watching and listening, and it would be nothing if it weren't for you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I mean that. Something that isn't said enough, but it's said with sincerity. For those of you out there, you know, who have an idea that, you know, you want to give something a shot, it's tough out there, you know, it's tough. It's gotten tougher. It's gotten tougher even in the last few years, you know, with AI and all of that, but if you feel motivated, and you feel inspired, hey, give it a shot and see what happens. Just remember, when I did this channel, when I started it those 13 years ago, again, this was just an idea. It was just something that I did for the fun of it. But sometimes you just never know where life will take you, and we don't know what the future brings. So if you ever have one of those ideas, and you just want to, you know, you feel that motivation, that inspiration, try it out. Because otherwise that regret, that feeling of, well, what if, right? What if? Well, I don't know, because I never did it. If you just go ahead with it, give it a shot, who knows what'll happen. Just something to keep in mind. But, otherwise, the channel, it's still going. There was some interesting feedback, you know. I tried out the McDonald's sauce. Yeah, I can't believe that one wasn't the most popular fast food release of all time, right? The McDonald's sauce. I'm shocked. I'm shocked people weren't camped outside the McDonald's for that. McDonald's. I think that it's because they're an overpriced chain with subpar offerings that makes their resentment toward most of their customers overwhelmingly clear. That's my 2 cents. Why no one cares about it. And that seems to be the prevailing sentiment as well. And there were a lot of good comments on that video that I think said that far more eloquently. But it's like, the food isn't getting any cheaper, and it's not getting any better either, so you eventually have to ask yourself, just why? What am I even doing? When you're paying $20 for pretty much literal garbage, it gets to a point where you have to ask the question. And this is just my 2 cents, but a lot of these chains don't really strike me as the type that they'll suddenly relent. You know, I think that they're more inclined to just keep sort of pushing, keep trying to squeeze the customer as much as they can. And then when they start going under, it's somehow your fault too. Seems to be the logic at play a lot of the time. You know, there are exceptions, mind you, where it's like the prices may be what they are, but at least to an extent, you're getting what you paid for. And I'm thinking of some chains like Chick-fil-A, for instance. You know, at least the quality there is pretty good. Consistently. But there are these other chains where you're paying more and more for what? For less, quite frankly. Less as far as the physical volume, but less as well as far as the quality, the experience, everything. And it's just getting to the absolute bottom of the barrel, and you have to pay more and more and more. Yeah, no wonder fewer and fewer people are going to these places. Understandably so. If money's tight, not a chance I would be giving them anything. When it's like, what? I just blew $25, $30 for just this subpar slop. Especially, you know, there are situations where you have to start looking at things and every single penny pretty much counts at this point. And it's like, no, it's not worth it. You know, I'm going to play it safe. Or when there's something where it's like, okay, it'll be $30, and now go flip a coin, and heads, it's going to be an actual edible meal, or tails, it's going to be disgusting. Oh, and you're going to be sick for the next 5 days also. Is that a chance you really want to take? A lot of folks say no, and I don't blame them. One single bit. That's the sentiment I feel, and I think a lot of other people feel it too, but I still like posing the question, you know, because I don't want to sit here and assume that, oh, this is definitely it. You know, because sometimes, I mean, there are plenty of times where I'll get it wrong. So that's why I'm always interested in what other people are thinking, if folks see it the same way, or if people see it differently. That's fine, too. I always like seeing the different ideas, or people will sometimes have the same idea, but they'll say it so much better than me, and it's like, you know, that's it right there. It's better than I could have possibly said it. It's like you said everything I was thinking, and then some. And it's like there's some folks that I think are able to capture the sentiment perfectly. So it's fun to pose the question and, you know, see how other people feel, but also allow for it to sort of act as like a little bit of a communal forum of sorts. And other people can see the ideas and engage with one another and have, you know, hopefully productive and dignified discourse. So I like posing the question. It's fun to see the responses. The McDonald's sauce. But, you know, all things considered, it wasn't a bad sauce, and it wasn't an antagonistic review. You know, I was just stating the facts, citing it as a question, but the review itself was a pretty positive one. Nothing really in the news I want to talk about today. Again, in the radio shows that I do, there's plenty of analysis of current events, and if that stuff interests you, highly recommend you check it out. But otherwise, everything's going. For the first time in a long time, I decided to get a couple more suits. And very happy with them. So they'll be making appearances in upcoming videos. I always like the older style suits myself. It's just what I like. I like the look. I like the fit. I am not, I'm sure as you could obviously tell, a slim fit fan. I'm pretty much the antithesis of slim fit. I like the suits that have wide lapels, long jacket, more or less unstructured, wide leg pants, that are pleated and have a nice crease. I always like wearing the white shirts, usually like a darker, conservative color suit, and a fairly matching tie, and always a vest these days. I always make a suit a 3-piece suit, even if it's not a 3-piece suit. I always add a black vest, and I have lots of those to go around. But again, I'm happy with what the quality. One is a brown suit. It's a brown window pane pattern suit. Vintage Brooks Brothers. I got it at a good deal. A very high quality suit, and very happy with it. And the other suit, I forget the brand, but it's a black pinstripe suit. Both of these are single-breasted suits, but wide lapels. And that suit is also one that I'm very happy with. So, it's getting tougher to find suits in the style that I like, because when I first started wearing suits, I was, and I think this is how most people really are, you don't think too much about the fit. It's like you have the very fashion-minded individuals, or the style-minded ones, There are similarities and differences, who obsess over the fit. I am not one of those people. And it's like, look, if someone else wants to wear their suit the way they want to wear it, I really couldn't care less. There's better things for me to sit here and waste my time with and worry about. And, oh, God forbid this guy's jacket is 3/8 of an inch too long. Oh my goodness, It's like I really couldn't care. Maybe this person likes it that way. How is my life adversely impacted by that fact? Yeah, it's not. Not at all. Anyway, some people really take this stuff into account, but for the most part, people will just sort of wear what they wear, and sort of just look at like the basic pattern and color, and that's about it. And that's why a lot of people will wear off-the-rack clothing and have no problem with it. And when I started wearing suits, for the most part, I was mostly interested, broadly, in mostly just the colors and patterns. I was thinking, I have a gray suit, and I'm going to try to wear this red tie with it, and, stuff like that. I wasn't thinking, alright, well, the lapels on this are a bit wider, and the pants are pleated. I wasn't really thinking about that. I was mostly just thinking about colors and patterns. It wasn't until late 2013, early 2014, when I started really thinking about the actual fit and the differences thereof. A lot of the suits that I first started wearing, and I started wearing suits regularly back in probably 2007 or so it goes way back. And at the time, the suits that I was wearing were mostly, just like your off-the-rack stuff. This was right before slim fit became popular, so a lot of my original suits that I were wearing were of a style that was popular in the early to mid-2000s. And what that was essentially is the pants were still, at least compared to today, wider leg. They were pleated. Maybe not as wide as like 80s or 90s suits, but still much more of a roomier leg. And the jackets were longer and were 3-button jackets for the most part. So those were the styles of suits that I was wearing for the most part when I first started getting into the, wearing this sort of clothing more regularly. And I mostly just wore that style, really from 2007, of course, I would get a new suit periodically here and there, but mostly well into 2011, I would say. And obviously some of those suits that still fit wear those into 2012. But toward the end of 2012, I started wanting to update the wardrobe a little bit and see what else there was to wear, so I started revisiting the stores and what have you, and into 2013 as well. At that point, though, slim fit had taken hold and was now the style of suit. So when I started buying more suits at that time, now there was a difference between how the suit that I bought in 2013, how it looked, how it fit, and how it felt, let's say compared to a suit that I had since 2010, even just in those few years. And these were things that I was starting to think a little bit more of, but I wasn't putting all the pieces together yet. Because, my wardrobe was still a bit of a mix. It all changed in early 2014. This is when I sort of really established my personal style, and there's been no going back since then. It's like, I just found what works for me, and that's how it's been. When, it was all sort of a happy accident. I wanted to get a double-breasted suit. Now, I already had some, but I wanted to get another one. And originally, I was just going to go to like a Joseph A. Bank or a Men's Warehouse or something and get a double-breasted suit from them. And I actually submitted an order for what would obviously now be a contemporary suit, probably slim fit. And it went through, but a couple days passed, and they said, "I'm sorry, we can't fulfill your order, and here's a refund." And I was a bit dejected, because I was looking forward to it, and I had decided, I'm just going to go and look online. I'm just going to look at some independent sellers, like on eBay or something, and just see what suits they have there. See if there's something. Maybe I could get a good suit, even at a better price. And I was looking around, and sure enough, I remember I came across this gray pinstripe. It was like this dark gray pinstripe double-breasted suit with like these white pinstripes, and I still actually wear it to this day. It's a real good suit. I thought, yeah, I like the way this suit looks. I think I'm going to go for it. And I got it, not realizing that this was like a total 90s suit, with the wide leg pants, pleated drapey, roomy jacket, the colors and patterns, everything that I like with the suits today. And when I got it, I eagerly tried it on, and it was like a night and day difference in terms of both how I felt, as far as just the comfort I felt in this ensemble, but likewise the way that I liked the look. And then, changing back from that suit to this black, more slim-fit suit that I had been wearing, it was like, wait a minute, this feels so tight and uncomfortable. What? And it was at that point when I started thinking, so what is it that I like so much about this suit, this double-breasted suit, compared to the other ones? And that's when I really realized, I like the older style of suits compared to the newer ones. And I quickly realized, okay, so I like the pleated pants, I like the wide leg pants, I like the suits that have a drape to it, I like the roomier jackets, with the wider lapels, I like the certain colors and patterns, and pretty much I liked looking like, a white-collar worker in the 80s or 90s. There you go. And then I began pursuing that style, and that's all that I wear nowadays. But I established it back in 2013, 2014, and it's been consistent ever since. But that's just why I like what I like. And Slim Fit, it's really been hanging on. It is the trend that refuses to die, but I don't like it. I've never really liked Slim Fit, but it's popular, and obviously enough people see it differently that it's really hung on. But I also think that a lot of these companies will keep it going as long as possible because it's cheaper. Less fabric, They could make more, etc. So, anyway, just a tangent I had there. Alright, I'd like to open up the email now. Let's get into the mailbag segment. The mailbag segment is self-explanatory. It is where I open up the email inbox and I read and respond to your listener letters. This is based on listener participation. Is there a question that you have? A comment, a topic suggestion, something you want to hear me talk about, something that you're interested in my thoughts on, any comments that you have? Is there something interesting that you read, learned, watched, saw in the news, interesting life experience you want to share? Open forum, clean slate, send in an email and talk about whatever you want. And if you want to do that, but you're not really sure, just listen to the segment that's about to follow and maybe take some inspiration from that. But it wouldn't be a segment if it weren't for your listener participation, so you're always welcome to write in. The way to do it is simple. Just send in an email, long or short, to the following email address: VORWINFO@gmail.com. That's VORWINFO@gmail.com. And with that, let's see what we have. Short note came in from Chris from Rhode Island. Just said, "Thank you for posting the new podcast. Just saw it pop up. You've made my day." Chris, it's good to hear from you. Thank you for your feedback. Quick suggestion comes in from Robson in Southampton, England. Said, "I understand you have done this sort of show in the past, but diving back into the paranormal and cryptids, after hearing you had such a great response to the 2024 predictions, I think it would be amazing to reach out again to all your amazing listeners and ask them about their paranormal and cryptid experiences." So, thank you for your suggestion there. Yeah, that sounds, it sounds definitely like an idea that really has some good potential. And, it's definitely something I'm going to consider, so thank you. Ben checks in El Paso, Texas. "I am now in college and have been watching your show for several years. I wanted to start this email off by saying that you have been an inspiration to all the new and upcoming food reviewers, especially on YouTube and TikTok. I feel as though you set the way for the common man's perspective on the fast food industry. Every time I go on TikTok, I see popular food reviewers such as Keith Lee, Luke Foods, Wayne Dang, etc. I wanted to ask if you would ever consider making an official TikTok. I understand that fast-paced entertainment isn't your style, but maybe you just cut clips of your YouTube videos and post them on TikTok, and could get you some good publicity. Thank you for your time. Ben in El Paso, Texas. Thank you. No, TikTok isn't really my thing. I know a lot of people like the platform, but I guess I'm sort of just old school and long form, so I'm kind of just going all in on that and, trying to appeal to the folks who just want to stick on YouTube and watch the longer reviews. And I can't really... Because I thought about that in 2020, when TikTok was really starting its astronomical rise in popularity, that, should I or should I not? I had a gut feeling. I said, I don't know, I don't want to do this. And, it's like, it's just not the site for me. I don't use TikTok. I don't have an account there. I never even browse it. And there's just no appeal, It's just like, there's some things where it's just like there's no appeal whatsoever. And that's one of those things. So, I'm just sticking with YouTube, and so far so good there. But thank you for asking. Okay, this question says, in an early VORW, you were a big fan of The Walking Dead. Did you finish the series? I quit once Negan came in, and did what he did. Spoiler free. I recently restarted the series and finished it, so I was interested in your thoughts. Have a good one. Thank you for your question. Now, this is a funny thing. I, like many other people, was really into The Walking Dead, and I was in it to the same exact point when Negan arrived. When he came in, I dropped out, and that was that. Now, I'm aware of all the lore, and I know some people actually say that some of the last or the later seasons of The Walking Dead are actually some of the best, but I know that the viewership had just continued to drop and decline, really till the bitter end, and the thing that's prevented me from getting back into it is having to endure the few seasons of just literal garbage, pretty much, I guess, to try to get, and work my way up now to the promised good stuff that happens later on. And it's just something, it's like, I want to... There's better things I could do with my time. So I really haven't... It's a struggle to find the motivation to revisit it, but there was a time up until, again, when Negan arrived. Sunday night, that was Walking Dead night, I would watch it on AMC, and like there was a time in 2012, 2013 when The Walking Dead was like a cultural phenomenon. I mean, it's like the next day, Monday morning, you would find people just talking about the episode. Oh, did you see what, this and that happened, and blah, blah, blah. And everyone was watching it, pretty much. But, oh well. There were already warning signs, even before the Negan stuff. That was just the breaking point where I said, no, I'm done with this. I don't want to watch this anymore. And to me, Fear the Walking Dead was even more disappointing because it took a premise that I thought really had really, really good potential. And what do? They make it into Walking Dead 2.0. And by Season 2, I couldn't even make my way through Season 2 of Fear the Walking Dead. I thought, you gotta be kidding me. I thought, so really, this is what you do with the show. I was done with that, too. Yeah, but, I think it's still going, isn't it? Where, at the very least, like, there are these spin-off series or something. I'm not entirely sure. Ryan in Farmington, Minnesota, says, were you ever nocturnal because you lived with your parents and didn't want to be around them? Maybe you wanted to be around them and they were trying to be kind and wanted you to be around? I like helping out around the house here and there, But the thing I don't like is all the questions they ask every day. I don't want to be there when they're there making noise. So, Ryan, in Farmington, Minnesota, you said all is fair in love. Alright, Ryan, checking in. Thanks for your question. I mean, for me, I don't think it really had anything to do with that. I know what you're saying, though. Sometimes we all just want time to ourselves, and that's perfectly understandable. I mean, me, I am extremely introverted, I like my quiet and all that good stuff, but when I think back to it, that really wasn't the motivation behind it. It was like, sure, I liked, and I still like, and appreciate the quiet of the night. That's an added benefit, But for me, it was just how my circadian rhythm was, and is. Where it's like, before I ever even took a single sip of a highly caffeinated beverage, I would struggle with insomnia. And, when I was a kid, on school nights, supposed to be in bed by a certain time, because you have to get up at a certain time, rise and shine, early on, get to school, all that good stuff, but it was a struggle. A never-ending struggle to try to get to bed by, 10, 11 p.m. It just wasn't happening. I'd be sitting there in bed, wide awake, and I could essentially stay up effortlessly till probably 3, 4 a.m. Now, especially for kids, staying up that late a lot of the time was a bit of a challenge, which is what sort of made it fun for some kids. It's like, I'm going to pull an all-nighter, It's like, there's almost an element of challenge. I'm going to try to stay up late tonight, right? But for me, I'm just sitting there. It's like, all right, well, I'm up, and that's it. No caffeine, no coffee, tea, no soda, no dunking cold water on my head or any of that. I was just up, It's just how it was. So, regardless of whether or not anyone else was around, that's just when I would naturally feel energized. And that's just how it just came to me naturally. There really wasn't any sort of, all right, I'm going to make myself stay up, and put myself on the night schedule so I could get some peace and quiet and a break from it all, Again, that was a nice little perk that came along with it, but it wasn't the driving force behind it. But, everyone's familial dynamic is different. So I can't speak for everyone. And I can't really even make generalizations. There's some people whose parents are genuinely good and well-meaning and well-intended. There are times where there are situations where you might think that they're good when they're really not. There's times where they're just bad all around. I can't make generalizations, and I'm not one of those people that'll just say, well, they're your parents. But I've come to realize in this world that there are plenty of parents who are some of the most miserable human beings I've witnessed, and some of these monsters aren't owed anything and aren't deserving of an ounce of respect. Now sometimes you've got essentially monsters raising monsters. You see that an awful lot now. But, so it's just, it differs based on one's scenario and all that. I think a lot of the idyllic, family, maybe there was a time when that was actually commonplace, but nowadays it's really more or less idyllic. That sort of dynamic isn't, that sort of familial unit where, you know, everyone treats each other with respect, and, you know, your parents are in a good, healthy relationship, and they serve both to, you know, to teach and to guide, and try to, you know, instill at least a set of morals, so you know right from wrong, and try to strive to be the best you can be, and all of that, you know. Sometimes it's sad. You'll see some parents that they really try their damnedest, but it's like everything's... the universe just is against them, and that's always the saddest thing, when you see sometimes a family that's trying their best, but, you know, life just is how it is. But I can't make generalizations. I could only speak for my folks, and they're good folks. They are. I think they're a good example of good, decent individuals doing the best they can. And I'm not just saying that because they're my parents or anything, but, you know, sometimes I'll think back and you don't realize this when it's happening. You never do. You never do. It's not how life works, but you look back and sometimes I'll think they really, they did their best. They deserved better. But I could only speak for myself. Jose, listening from Spain, says, I've been watching your food reviews for years, and it's only been a few months that I've been listening to your podcast. Usually do it via the YouTube channel, or at times from Spotify from on the go, backlogging your episodes. Not sure if you still take viewer topics to talk about, but my friend and I had a question that I'm not sure if you talked about before, and if you did, please excuse this email. So first, to interject, I still take questions, and don't even worry about repetitiveness. I myself don't mind repeating anything. I'm happy to, so don't even worry about any of that. Don't let, and this doesn't just go for you, but for anyone, don't let that hold you back. I really couldn't care less if I've answered the question before, so by all means, ask away, go for it. Now onto the question. You say, after your food reviews, do you complete the entire meal, or do you simply discard it? Thank you, from Jose. And Jose, thank you. That's a good question, and I know you're not the only one to have wondered that, so... These days, I don't eat the whole meal. And most of the time, what you see me eat on camera is all that I eat. And that's about it. These days, more and more, I haven't gotten the best feeling, and I say this sort of based on nothing. I guess like the sort of vibe, for lack of a better word, about a lot of this stuff. I just don't really get a good feeling, so a lot of the time, what you see me eat on camera, like a bite or two, is all that I eat. And then I just toss it, and that's it. If the item is really good, you know, then I might eat more. But even then, my appetite just isn't all that big. So, even if I were to go into all this stuff with the goal of eating a full meal, I wouldn't really be able to finish much of what I actually consumed. Or what I ordered, I should say, not consumed, but what I ordered. So no, most of the time these days I just discard it after the camera is off, but, you know, it all depends. If it's really good, I might eat some more of it, but if it's not good, I'm not going to eat it. Or if I don't get a good feeling about it, I'm not going to. So that's what I do most of the time. Chris in Atlanta, Georgia, writes, I'm writing to see what your thoughts are on pipe smoking. I've taken it up recently after smoking cigars for a long time. I don't smoke cigarettes, as I find the smell to be terrible, but pipes offer a pleasant smell and taste, along with a more relaxed smoking atmosphere. I know you don't smoke, but seeing as you have a fondness for things from yesteryear, I figure I'd see what you thought. Thanks again for providing both great audio and visual content, and I hope your 2024 is your most successful year yet. So Chris, in Atlanta, Georgia, thank you for your question. It's an interesting one. My answer to your question probably isn't in line with the the designated acceptable opinion of 2024, but I don't have a problem whatsoever with pipe smoking, and I know I've definitely I don't mind it. I've nothing against it. No, I like the aesthetic. I know people have said it's a lot more aromatic, for lack of a better word. I've no objection whatsoever to it. These days I know you're supposed to hate cigarettes, cigars, and pipes, but hard drugs are excellent. That seems to be the view that really gets pushed these days, and my view of it is not in line with that. Oh well, now that's the end of me. But now sometimes I do see that though, where it's like tobacco pipes are horrible, but if you're smoking something else out of a pipe, that's good. That's good. Go for it. I think, what? But anyway, I feel how I feel about it. Now, pipe smoking has never bothered me, nor have cigars. Out of curiosity, Chris, if you want to follow this up, what type of pipe do you like? Do you go with one of the sort of polished, wooden ones, or do you go with the corncob pipe, or what sort of style do you go with? Because I know there's some variety there. So if you want to follow that up, you're welcome to. And let's keep looking for some more emails to get to. We hear from Mr. Crabapples, champion of champions. I have an idea for another themed episode like the one you did for earthquakes and fast food. How about a show about cryptids? Followers can email about their experiences and beliefs or lack thereof, and you can tell your own stories. And on a side note, do you ever have really strange dreams? Last night I dreamt a chicken hopped on my bed, leaned in real close and said, "I heard you've been talking smack." I bet Popeyes sent it. Sincerely, Mr. Crabapples, champion of champions. It's good to hear from you, and I like the thought of that themed episode. That might be something that I'm really going to consider going forward. That reminds me, though, I remember back, must have been 2016, I think I want to say that it was, where I actually tried to do that. I tried to do a themed show at the time about cryptids. I was, because I had the same idea that you had. I was thinking, hey, this could make a really cool show. It'd be interesting to see the variety of response that came in. But I was a bit disappointed. And mind you, though, this is... everyone can think what they want about this stuff. I guess I was just hoping... Well, I'll tell you how it played out. So I mentioned exactly that. I was... what experiences do you have, etc., etc. And I got about 50 emails saying they don't exist. And that was it. That was the only feedback that came in. So I thought, well, folks are entitled to feel as they do, but I guess I sort of went into it hoping for one thing and got a different outcome. And, mind you, those sorts of emails don't bother me. I was just hoping for a little bit of both sides, to have some some balance to it, but maybe it'll be interesting to at least attempt a 2024 edition and see what happens, and I would hope anyway that, you'll have folks on both sides that'll be able to present their case or experiences, both for and against, but we'll see. That might be something I'll go ahead with. As far as dreams are concerned, there are many instances where I'll have dreams that are quite strange. Sometimes I'll remember more details than others. I haven't really had many dreams as of late, but yeah, I'll have some weird ones, to put it lightly. Thank you for your email. I hear a helicopter coming in. Not sure if you'll be able to, but I think it's one of those times where it sounds louder to me in person than it does as far as the microphone picks up. Have this email coming in from a listener who goes by the name Blue. I found out about your channel and subsequently your podcast through your infamous and iconic Popeye's Butterfly Shrimp review. I know some portion of your audience watches you ironically because you're sort of a meme on this space, but when I found your podcast, it gave me an entirely new perspective on you as a person. You are honestly one of the few people left on the internet who hasn't been tainted by the toxicity of social media. I respect that you have niche personal interests and that many people wouldn't find mainstream. You are a kind and genuine person that we seem to lack in this modern era. I usually have misanthropic and pessimistic outlooks on humanity and the world in general, but those seem to subside when I see people like you. Dignity and kindness seem to be dwindling in this day and age, but they aren't completely lost. People like you serve as shining beacons of hope that partially restore my faith in humanity and the human condition. As of late, my life hasn't been going the best, and I find your podcast a way to cope with current circumstances. I lost my job and dropped out of community college. Although my life on paper doesn't look too promising, I still have this pipe dream of becoming an artist. Music is my passion, and I would like to pursue it as a professional singer-songwriter. But I have qualms about this aspiration because it is very unrealistic, and pursuing it might just end up in disillusionment. As somebody who never expected their channel to blow up, how should I treat this aspiration? Should I pursue with ambition and zeal, or find something else? I feel like the alternative is a far safer option, but to me it seems right now I have no other choice. Should I have any expectations of success or not care about the outcome, as failed expectations inevitably lead to disappointment? So, Blue, number one, thank you for your email. Number two, thank you for your kind words. I think you're too generous, but it means a lot to know that these broadcasts are able to help you out, and I'm sorry to hear that you're going through a difficult time in life. It's a tough question that you ask, and it's one that I can't necessarily give an absolute answer on, so I'll talk about my own situation, and you'll just have to relate it to your life, because you obviously know your circumstance and all the details and all of that better than anyone else does. So it's only you that then can examine where things stand, look at it, and then take it from there. Because I can't, number one, give a general, oh yes, or a no. And everyone's situation's different, so consider that, and just really look, into your life introspectively, examine the what-ifs, write them down if you have to, and examine options and then go from there. But here's what I'll mention. It's true, I never had any expectation of the channel becoming anything. But thinking back, relating back to what you mentioned in terms of your situation where life looks either bleak or uncertain, where there's just a big question mark as to which way things can do, or go, I should say, and maybe you feel like you're in a juncture where it's like, all right, I could go and take, let's say, path A, which is riskier, and success is not guaranteed, but maybe I'd be happier doing that, or pathway B, a safer route, maybe more stable, but I'd be miserable every second of the way. That's sort of how I felt back in 2015, 2016. I was sort of in that juncture. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what to do with my life. Had no idea. The funny thing is, I still don't. That sort of clarity never came to me. Didn't come with age, didn't come with experience, didn't come at all. I still don't know. So I do this, this is my livelihood, and at least it's still going, and I'm very thankful for that. But because of that uncertainty, I was sort of left at the time with a choice. I could either go the usual route and get a degree and a job in something that I really couldn't care less about, and go through the grind, as many of us do, but, with very little motivation in something that I wouldn't even look forward to each day, that, I would just live for the money, and dread the process, probably hate waking up every single day, and probably really wear me down anyway. And that was option. That was the first. That was an option. That was the safe choice. But happiness, not guaranteed there. Then there was the route that was much more appealing. I guess I've always just been a bit unconventional, I suppose you can say. So that unconventional route wasn't a turn-off for me. I thought, well, maybe I could go ahead and try to make something of this YouTube channel and just scrounge around otherwise and try to just do what I can to keep my head above water. I might be poor. I might not have much. Might not really have anything. But despite that, I might be a whole hell of a lot happier doing it. Payoff wasn't guaranteed, and I didn't expect one. But I thought about it. I thought, there might be one path that on paper makes more sense. But there's another path. Maybe you know how it is. You keep thinking about it, You keep going back to it. You keep looking it back over. Deep down, even in a traditional sense, folks will probably try to talk you out of it. It's like, deep down, yeah, that's the path I want to take. Goes against the book, goes against the advice of what some would say, but yeah, that's what I want to do. And it's like, society will expect you to go the one way, but you keep focusing on that other. You keep thinking, yeah, but what if? That's really what you want to do. And you're just sort of asking the question more or less, how? Well, I took that path. And at first it felt like maybe, I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing, right? Because it goes against everything I'd really been taught, you know? You go do this, and you do that, and you do it all by the book. Well, all of a sudden, it's not the case. But immediately, I felt far more of a sense of fulfillment in taking that path. And in my case, granted, it did pay off in the end. But it's important to note that I wasn't even expecting it to. I was expecting to just, even if it's barely getting by, to just keep things going. That was something that I was committed to. But here's the thing. Here's the important takeaway about all of this, though. And it's an important distinction that I cannot emphasize enough. This all sounds good, you know? It sounds like, well, you know, you had this unconventional route, and you decided to take a chance, and you took it, and you made something of it, etc. But there is an important clarification. It is not as though I made that decision to take that route before the channel even existed. So I'll say that again. It's not as though this was the choice that I had, and then I made the YouTube channel, and then everything went from there. You see, I already had a foundation in place. By the time I had that choice to make, I already had this channel going for 5 years. The channel already had a small but regular audience, where the channel maybe had, 20 to 30,000 subscribers. Not all of them were active. Probably had a few thousand active viewers. But there was still that foundation. There was still that active base. I already had the foundation in place. There were already the building blocks there. I was just able to then continue building upon it and make something of it. If that foundation never existed in the first place, when that decision came to be made, would the outcome be the same? I don't know. I can't say that it would. I mention that because in that way, this situation differs from yours. It would be like in your case, if you already had even just a minor following as a singer-songwriter. And let's say you already had a few thousand regular listeners of your music and maybe a song or two that had, 200,000 listens. And then you said, okay, well, I could either build off of that or just go the conventional route. As opposed to saying, well, maybe I could start something as a singer-songwriter. But again, maybe you do have that little bit of a foundation in place. But I stress that because it would be disingenuous of me to say otherwise and say, I didn't have anything and I built it all after, because that's not true. I already had that foundation in place. I was just able to then start building upon that. You know your situation, and I even speak just generally to anyone else thinking the same thing. You know your situation better than anyone else. If you go that route, you are taking a risk. Maybe it's an all or nothing risk, maybe it's not. Ask yourself this. What will happen if I go all in on this and it doesn't work out? Can I recover? Is a plan B, no matter what that plan is, feasible? What do I do then if it just doesn't work? Think about that and have an answer for that question before you make that choice. But if the answer is something just like, well, then I'll just revert back to where I am right now, it's not too bad. Nothing really gained, but not a ton lost either. So you just gotta think about it. It's like... because you have to know. I know this doesn't sound all that motivating or inspiring, but you have to know that the odds are against you. But the odds aren't zero. You have to know that too. But it's not going to be easy. But you also have to think, well, what sort of degree of success am I even looking for? It's like, do I want to be a superstar, or do I just want to be able to make at least a little bit from what I do? For me, my view, I just want the crumbs I can get, enough to just keep things going, and that's really good enough. Keep the lights on, keep food on the table, all that stuff, I don't need to be sitting there like some lottery winner. I don't want to be a number one or any of that. Just enough to get by, that's all I ask. That was what was and still is my only goal. So you just have to think about the pros and the cons. But secondly, look, this is your life. As far as we all know, you live it once. So you have to think about your priorities, conventional or otherwise. And in the end, you just have to be smart about it, be wise about it, but look, I went the unconventional route, and I'm happy I did. It's taking a chance, but you're never going to know the outcome if you don't take it. Some people are fine with that, but if you don't take it, you'll never know. Just be smart about it, but personally, you know your situation. You're going to be taking a leap, you're going to be taking a risk, but if you feel good about it, or you feel good at least about taking the risk, maybe give it a shot. Don't necessarily expect everything to go your way, but if you've got that passion, you got that motivation, maybe go for it. I think in today's day and age, I think if you're really passionate about it, I think people will be able to tell. Something that is sorely missing in a lot of things these days, that genuine passion. Just think it through, then think it through again. But my friend, whatever you decide to do, I wish you sincerely the best of luck. And if you decide to go ahead with it, I hope everything works out in your favor, and I mean that. I want to see you succeed, and I hope you do. An anonymous listener in Arkansas, checking in, writes, I'm wanting to move to a neighboring state where a relative lives and get my real estate license, as it is easy to obtain in that state. But I am 20, about to turn 21. I don't consider myself to be ugly, but I do look younger than my age. I'm currently shaving more often to get my facial hair to grow in stronger. My point is, I don't know if I have the right looks to be a realtor, and I've been taking myself to the black pill clinic, so to speak, just trying to find confidence. Thinking maybe a suit and tie could help, from an anonymous listener. So thank you for your question there. Appearances, it's a tricky subject, and it's one that I think almost all of us, to a degree, will think about one way or another. I mean, I'll tell you, you wouldn't believe the amount of things that get said about me. Or maybe you can, but believe me, a whole lot does. And it's always been that way. For the last 13 years I've been doing this. I get comment after comment and email after email, and I get called everything in the book, When you think about it, my videos and everything get scrutinized by so many hundreds of thousands and millions of people. So, I mean, I hear it all. Oh, he looks so creepy. He looks like an axe murderer. He looks like a vampire. He looks like a rat. He looks like a golem, He looks like some pale, dysgenic, whatever. It looks like a skeleton, and, the hair is, they'll just find something to pick on. Oh, his eyes are bulging out, and his nose is this, and the fingernails. Don't even get me started with that. Oh, get a tan, get a new hairstyle, get new suits, so on and so forth, right? You hear it all. I really have. And, it's like, yeah, I know I'm weird looking, but it gets to a point where I just don't care. In today's world, especially today's social media driven world, it's very, very easy to get caught up in one's appearance and looking a certain way, or trying to be wary of, the judgment of others, etc. And I know for a lot of people, especially if you ever see people say something about you, it can hurt. Believe me, it can. And that's another thing. I've, for years, would have people saying, oh, he looks like he's not even out of middle school yet. And then a couple years ago it changed. Now people say, because I'm a little bit older now, people say, I can't tell if he's 15 or 50. Now I get more of those at this point in time than the former. But for years I would get people saying that, oh, he looks like a little boy wearing his dad's suit or whatever. This might sound cliched. I'm sure it does. But I need you to remember this. There's truth to this. Even if you've heard it a million times before, there's truth to it because I know it. I've seen it. I've lived it. I've experienced it. There's truth to it. You're always going to have people out there who are just jerks. They'll judge everyone else except themselves, and nothing you do can change that. You have to understand that. But, despite today's judgmental world and appearance-driven environment that we have, I truly believe this, your competency and character matters more than your appearance. Here's what I mean to say. If you get that license, and you do a damn good job as a realtor, you're thorough, you're professional, you're courteous, it's not going to matter what you look like. And secondly, the light upon which we see ourselves is often very different than how most people do. Despite what we see online, I really believe most people couldn't care less about the facial hair or whatever. It couldn't care less. They're going to be interested in buying a house or whatever. And that's what they're going to be interested in. My advice, maintain a professional appearance. And I could tell you right now, based on what I see in the world around me, you ever hear people talk about the competency crisis? Based on what I see, I think that's a real thing. And people, whether they say it explicitly or not, are going to be looking for someone in practically any field these days that knows what they're doing. Well, if you know what you're doing, and you show it, that's more likely than not going to take you places. Yeah, people are visually oriented and all of that. But a lot of the time, we are our own harshest critics. So all I'm trying to say is that I think if this is something you think you could do and do well, then just go for it. And I think you'll be fine. But that's just my 2 cents. Anna in Portugal says, sorry to bother you, but I need to know, when possible, when will it be worth buying a radio to listen to you? I'm in Portugal. I really, really, really wanted to start listening to you on the radio and leave all this internet and TV imagery behind. So, Anna, thank you. It's an interesting question that you ask, and unfortunately, there's not really an easy answer for that. I mean, there's a good chance that if you buy a radio right now, in Portugal, you would actually be able to listen to the broadcast. So understand that you might actually probably be able to listen right now. And if you want to get a radio, shoot me another email, and I'll give you some recommendations. I'm just giving you that heads up that if you want to go ahead, you probably could right now. Because there's no plan on the horizon for anything that's going to change. Now, for those of you in Europe, let's say, and maybe you have a radio, I'm going to give some times right now and frequencies upon which you could try out, okay? So, the time zone is going to be, let's say for folks in Portugal, Western European summer time. And I'm going to say it in local time. The first broadcast to try will be every Monday morning at the time of 5 a.m. Western European Summer Time on the frequency of 4840 kilohertz. That would be 4.840 megahertz at 5 a.m. Western European Summer Time. The next broadcast to try every Monday evening at 8 o'clock p.m. Western European Summer Time, 11925 kilohertz. That would be 11925, 11.925 megahertz, 8 p.m. Monday evening, Western European Summer Time. The third broadcast I would explicitly recommend would be every Saturday morning at the time of 7 o'clock a.m. Western European Summer Time. The frequency there, 4840 kilohertz. That's 4.840 megahertz. While I cannot guarantee results, these are your best chances. And that goes for anyone in Europe. And the last email of the show tonight came in from Alexander. Asks the question, are there any updates as far as shortwave broadcasting is concerned? Alexander, thank you for your question, and boy are there updates, and none of them are good either. Isn't that something? What a surprise there. Yeah. When I say that the medium is in decline, I mean it when I say it. And I hate to see it, but what can you do? It's been rough. So, the BBC World Service made some very significant cutbacks to their broadcasts, particularly some of the only ones that could still be heard in North America. So, in March, the BBC still targets Asia and Africa. And obviously these days the BBC, you either love them or you hate them pretty much, but nonetheless they have long been on the scene as far as international broadcasting is concerned. And they had about 52 broadcasts a day, the bulk of which targeted Africa. And of the broadcasts targeting Africa, a good number of those could also be heard, some clearer than others, in Europe and North America, especially the broadcasts to West Africa. Well, most of those broadcasts are gone now. And they announced, and I actually wrote this down, So, in March, they had 44 frequencies a day to Africa, and the rest of the 52 were to Asia, so 44 of those were to Africa. And they were on the air for 13 hours a day, every day in English. Now, in April, they cut it down to just 10. So from 44 frequencies a day to 10 per day, and that's it. That is a huge reduction. And they cut the number of hours from 13 to 7. They've also made significant reductions in the broadcasts in all other languages, but the biggest cutbacks are in English. Huge, huge reductions there. And at this point, they pretty much said, hey, we're going to go all digital by 2030, whether you like it or not. Yeah, they're going to do it. They are. They're going to be gone within the next 5 years. Most definitely. So, if you still like the BBC, I don't know if shortwave is the place to go anymore to hear them at this point. There will be some one-off instances, like in the middle of the night. You're still going to be able to hear them. For instance, at 1 a.m., I heard them the other night on 9410 kilohertz. That was still coming through, but you're going to really have to hunt around to hear a signal of them if you really want to. Most insultingly, if you ask me, when they made these huge cutbacks, they didn't even announce them. I think because they don't want the bad press and they don't want there to be any pushback, but just the utter contempt that they seemingly have for their listeners. To make all these cutbacks and not even tell the folks who are impacted by them about it. You just pull the plug and let them figure it out. Disgusting. And like I said, it's like they hate their listeners. It's like they hate everyone that still listens to them at this point. No effort made at all to even try to tell all the listeners in Africa or elsewhere that, yeah, we're getting rid of most of the broadcasts there. Don't even tell them. So pull the plug, go figure it out. Who cares? The folks who are going to be impacted aren't going to have any internet to make a fuss about it anyway, so what does that matter? And Deutsche Welle, another broadcaster that's a shell of its former self. They only broadcast at this point, well, they used to broadcast in Hausa to Nigeria, Amharic to the Horn of Africa, and Arabic to Sudan. They had 18 broadcasts a day in those languages. They got rid of all the broadcasts in Hausa to Nigeria, which now just leaves 2 broadcasts a day to the Horn of Africa, and that's about it. So DW, what was once one of the most prolific international broadcasters, I don't even think they've got another year left in them at this point. So they're on 2 frequencies a day in Amharic for, again, the Horn of Africa, and that's it. So at this point, even if you don't speak Amharic, may as well scan around, and if you hear them, because you're probably not for much longer, so that's going to be that. But similarly, they just sort of left And I was actually able to see some feedback from their audience in Nigeria, and let's just say the reactions were not good. I saw about 400 or 500 comments from listeners across Nigeria who said, hey, this is great and all that you said that we could just go listen online or on the FM, but what am I supposed to do when I'm out in the countryside and there aren't any FM stations that carry your program and there's no internet? Too bad, just deal with it. So a lot of listeners there were cut off, but it's clear they couldn't care less, DW. Again, just a contempt that they have for the people that keep them going. It's unreal, really. I've seen it for so long, it doesn't surprise me. I actually come to expect it, but it's still unreal. How unprofessional it is, too. How rude it is, but how unprofessional. You don't even say goodbye. They don't even say we're going to be discontinuing the shortwave broadcasts. They don't even say it. Just go to listen, and then one day you just hear static. You'll think, is there something wrong with my radio? What's going on? But no, they just ended the broadcast, and you'll have to figure that out on your own. Yeah, it does get me fired up, but it's ridiculous. So, the medium continues its decline. I think we're getting into the final stages of things, if you ask me. There's no coming back after this. So, this is going to be it. We're really, I think, at the end now. It's been a good ride. Been saying this for a while, that we're getting close, but I think it's just around the corner now. So if you're still out there listening, now is really the time to enjoy whatever's left before it goes away, because it's going to happen soon. I think it's only going to keep speeding up at this point, so whatever last vestiges remain, savor it, cherish it, because now it's going to be gone in the blink of an eye. I am 100% convinced. This medium, it's turned a corner, and we are past the point of no return. Its fate is sealed at this point. There's no coming back. So, make the most of what's here while it's here, because it's not going to be here much longer. And with that, that's all that I have for you tonight. Thank you all for listening in. Until next time, be safe, be healthy, and I wish you all the very best. Take care. This is VORW.